Hey everybody, Johnny B here with devslopes.com, and we're getting ready to get started here with our Where's the Food Truck Android app. You have gone through the whole API course with Jack, and you've seen a little bit about what the app is that we're going to build, so let's get going. Now we're going to be working off of our local server, so I'm going to go ahead and open up everything that we're going to need to be working with that. I'm going to start out with Atom. I'm going to open up Atom here. And I have our food truck project here. This is the one that you guys built with Jack. Got it here and on the desktop. And so I have that open. Then I'm going to go ahead and fire up my terminal. And let's see where I am. I'm going to CD into the folder there. So I'm going to go to CD desktop, ls cd food truck API. So now I am inside of our food truck API. So now I'm just going to fire up Mongo D to fire up the Mongo database. And we are connected on 27017. Then I'm going to open up a second window here and check that I'm still in the food truck API directory, which I am. And then I'm just going to say npm run dev. And that should fire up our server. And there we are, started on port 3005, which is what we would expect. I'm going to put this down here in the corner. And then just to make sure that everything's up and running, I'm going to open up Postman. All right, so with Postman, I'm going to I have all of our URLs saved here. So I'm going to say get food trucks. And so we got that here. I'm going to say send. And we should see that we have some food trucks that I've created and stored in our database just to get us going and started. Then I'm going to also open up RoboMongo. Press connect. And check out our food truck API, collections, and food trucks. And here we see the same food trucks that we are seeing in Postman. So it looks like we got everything running as far as the API is concerned. So now let's get started with the Android app. So I'm going to open up Android, and I'm going to say new project. Let me drag this over here. So let's just call this WTF. Where's the food truck? All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to say next. And we'll work with API 16. That's fine. I'm going to say next. And we're just going to start with an empty activity and build from there. Later on, we might use the login activity as well as the maps activity. We'll see. But this is good enough to get started. So we're going to say next. And main activity, I'm going to say food trucks activity. And food trucks, let's call this food trucks list activity, because the first screen is going to be the recycler view listing of all of our food trucks. And then I'm going to say finish, and that's going to build. So we'll wait just 1 second. All right, so we got our food trucks list activity up and running. And so what we're going to do in this first video, we are going to create the model for our food truck, and we're going to go ahead and create our first volley call to our API, and that will return some JSON, and we'll parse that JSON. And that's about as far, I think, as we're going to get here in this video. So let's get cracking. First thing we're going to do is import our library that we're going to use to help us manage our web requests. And that library is called Volley. It's a Google library. And so recently they have added the Gradle compiler, so that's great for us. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come down here to our Gradle scripts and find our build.gradle for the app, double click on it, and then here in the dependencies, all we got to do is add it. And that is compile And we want com.android.volley volley 1.0.0. And that should do it. And let's press sync now. And if everything went according to plan, we should be able to use the Volley library now. So I'm going to come back over here to our Java and open up our food trucks list activity and just try it out. I'm going to say JSON object request, which comes from the Volley toolbox. All right, so it looks like we are imported and up and running. So I think the first thing I want to do is set up our model for our food truck. So here under com.johnnyb.wtf, I'm going to right click and say new, and I'm going to say package, and I'm going to say model. And I'm also going to create a package for activities, which will include our activities. So then I'm going to drag my food truck list activity into activities, and I'm going to move it, and I'm going to say yes refactor. All right, so now that's in there. So now we can get started with our models. I'm going to right click and say new Java class. And here I'm going to say capital food, capital truck for our model, for our food truck object class. And we are ready to get going. So what do we need our food truck to have? Let's go ahead and run back to our Atom and check out our food truck model that we created in our API. Looking at it, we know we're going to need a name that is of type string, food type string, average cost a number, and geometry, which has coordinates of number and number. So basically, we're just going to need name, food type, average cost, latitude, longitude. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say, oh, and also it's going to have an ID. All right, so let's say private string ID is equal to, and we're going to just initialize empty strings or 0 for the doubles. I'm going to say private string name is equal to empty string. Say private string. What is weird spacing? Private string food type. And private double average cost 0.0, private double latitude to 0.0, and private double longitude equal to 0.0. Awesome. Now, we're just going to create some getters and a constructor for these. And this is probably one of my favorite things about Android Studio. If there's one thing that I could copy from Android Studio and put into Xcode, it would be probably this. So all we got to do is right click and say generate, and we're going to say getters we'll start with. I'm going to select all 6 of our properties. And then down here at the bottom, that makes all of our getters. And then down here I'm going to create our constructor. Right click, generate, constructor, and again select all 6. Alright, and there we go. We got our model for our food truck setup. Okay, so what's next? Now I think we can go ahead and try to make our first API call. So let's go ahead and come back to our activity. And to start out, we're just going to do it all right here in our activity. And once we got it working, then we'll go ahead and move it into a separate data service file. Okay. So what do we need? We're going to need a URL, right? So let's go ahead and say string URL is equal to what is our URL that we're trying to hit. So if we come back to Postman, you can see that our URL for getting our list of food trucks is HTTP, localhost, our port, API v1 food truck. However, in Android, we can't use localhost. we need to use a specific identifier for the address, and that is as follows. So we're going to say instead HTTP colon / 10.0.2.2, and then we can do the rest of it, which is 3005/API/v1/food truck. Perfect. So now we have our URL that we are going to use in our volley call. We are also going to need an array of food trucks to store our response objects into. So we're going to say array list, and we're going to put food trucks into it, and then we're going to call this just food truck list, and this is going to be a new array list, and that's initialized, so that's good. Okay, so now we can finally get to our volley call. So remember, volley is a library that helps us manage our web requests. So we can do get requests, we can do post, we can do push, we can do all of those web requests with volley, and with the methods we can do things like put in headers, we can put in body requests, and so it makes it a lot more simple than it used to be in the old days. So that's why we're using volley, and it's a great library. So here we go. So all we got to do that is we're just going to say final, and we're going to say, so we're going to do a JSON array request, because remember, if you go and you check out our Postman, we have here an array of JSON objects. Okay, so that's why we need to do a JSON array request. So I say JSON final JSON array request, and we're going to call this get trucks. Okay, and we're going to say new JSON array request, and the so you can see here the parameters that it is expecting. It's expecting a method, which is post or get, etc. It's expecting a URL. Then you can pass in parameters, which we aren't going to be doing at this point, and then we need to set our listener. Okay, so the method that we're going to do is request.method.get. We're going to pass in our URL. Then we are going to say null, since we're not passing any JSON objects or anything. And then we're going to say new response, because it wants the listener. And that should autocomplete some things for us. So now we have here this on response. And then it's telling us that it can't resolve that because we need a few more things. We need to come down here to say comma new response for the error listener. So now we got that. So now we have the error listener as well. And then here we can go ahead and just complete this off with a semicolon. And there is our JSON array request. So if all goes according to plan, we should be able to print out our response right here. So let's go ahead and try that out. I'm just going to say sout. We're going to say response.toString. And let's see what happens. All right, so let me just go through here and double check that we got everything we need. We have our database up and running in our terminal. We have our URL with the correct emulator specific address here, API v1 food truck. You know what? I think that should be good to go. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to press play. And then I'm going to say Nexus 5, that's fine. Here's our emulator. It's not going to show anything because we don't have anything. What we want to see is here in the Android monitor. So let's see. But of course nothing happens because I forgot to make the volley request. So to do that we have to say volley dot new request queue. And then all we have to do is pass in our context that it is expecting. So I can say this. So this referring to this activity's context. Then I'm going to say add request that we created, which is called get trucks. And then let's try that again. And real quick, I'm going to go ahead and so here in the just to explain these methods here, we have on response and response error listener. So when it has a good response, that's where you'll be able to handle it here. However, when there are errors, that's where you can handle it right here in this method here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a log. I'm going to say log.v, and I'm going to say API. I'm going to say error, and then we're going to pass in the error.getLocalizedMessage. And so the getLocalizedMessage kind of spells that out a little bit for us, just in case we get an error here. So I'm going to say press play. I'm going to run it on the Nexus 5 API. And we got this error, socket exception permission denied. And that is because we need to add internet permissions. So come up here to your manifests and open your Android manifest. And then right here, we need to add permissions for our app to access the internet or networks. So we're just going to say, uses permission, and we're going to scroll down here to internet. All right, that's all we need to do here. Go ahead and save that. Come back to our food truck list activity, and let's run that one more time. All right, so you can see here in our system.out, we have all of our food trucks. So there you go. Made your first API call, and we are receiving data. How cool is that? So just to reiterate, kind of re-emphasize what's going on here, in our Atom program, we can see our API, and here is our get all food trucks route endpoint. And we are returning a JSON object of food trucks. In our case, it's an array. And so to make it a bit easier to see, here are all of our food truck objects. And just like in Postman, just like you've been seeing with doing with Jack, we are calling a GET request to our API. And then here in Android, we're doing the same thing with Volley. We're sending a JSON array request, and we are retrieving that information. So that is pretty darn cool. So now let's go ahead and parse it. So what do we need to do? We need to turn this big old hodgepodge of data into objects that are pushed right into our food truck class that we created. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. So what do we have? We have here an array of objects, and so we need to turn that into our model classes. So we're going to be working with JSON. So we need a try catch block. So I'm going to say try, and I'm going to say catch. And here, what else are we going to need? In our try, we're going to need a JSON array to hold our data. So I'm going to say JSON array, and I'm going to call it food trucks. And I'm just going to set this equal to response. And we could have used response, but remembering food trucks is a little bit easier. And what do we need? We need to loop through each of the JSON objects in our JSON array and parse the information inside of it into usable data for us. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for, and let's say int x to 0. We're just setting up a for loop here. I'm going to say for x to less than food trucks dot length, and then we're going to say x plus plus. So all this is doing is just setting up a loop to loop through each food truck object. So we have 1, 2, 3 currently, so it's just setting up, and we're going to loop through each of these JSON objects. We're going to extract the ID, the average cost, the food type, everything, and then we are going to create new food truck objects from our food truck model, and then we're going to put that inside of our food truck list array that we created right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get going on that. So then, next thing we need to do is create a JSON object, and this is our food truck. We're going to say food truck equal to food trucks, the array of JSON objects, and we're going to say food trucks dot get JSON object, and we are going to get the x indexed object of our array. And then from here, all we got to do is start extracting the data. So we're going to say string name is equal to food truck dot get string, and we are going to say name. Okay, so this one here, this name, this is the variable that we can use inside Android Studio. This one right here, the food truck dot get string, that has to be exactly as it is inside of our API. So here in our model for food truck, has to be the exact same as we have here. So name, food type, these have to be the exact same typing as we have in our API. Okay, so let's get rid of these errors we're seeing. So these are telling us that we have unhandled exceptions. And so right here in our catch block, we're going to catch those unhandled exceptions. We're going to say JSON exception. We're going to call it E, and we are just going to log that error. We're going to say log.v. We're going to say call it JSON, and then we're going to say exception plus e.get localized message. All right, so there we have it. Now we have our catch block taken care of. So let's go ahead and finish up with this parsing. I'm going to close our log here. So come on, close. All right, so what else do we need? After name, we're going to get our ID, and that is equal to food truck dot get strings. We're just getting the information from our JSON data. We're going to say get string, and this is underscore ID. String food type, and that is equal to food truck dot get string, and that is food type, all lowercase. And then we're going to need to do something a little bit more tricky, because if we come and look at our data, we have an object that has our ID, average cost, food type, etc. Then we have a second JSON object inside of it that is called geometry, and then inside of that we have another JSON object that is called coordinates, and inside of that are our longitude and latitude properties that we want. All right, so we're going to have to create a couple of JSON objects first to get down to our latitude and longitude. So I'm going to say JSON object, and we're going to call that geometry. So that's our upper level, and that is food truck dot get JSON object, and it is called geometry. Okay, so now going back to Postman, now we have this object. Now we need this object. So let's come back into Android. Let's say JSON object. Call this one coordinates. And we're going to say coordinates is equal to, now we're getting geometry. So we're getting geometry dot get JSON object, and it is called coordinates. Now, coming back to Postman just to take a look, now we have our coordinates object, and we can just pull our longitude in. Come back to Android. So now we can say double and latitude is equal to coordinates dot get string, and that is called lat, and double longitude, and that is called coordinates dot get string, that is long. Okay. All right, so now we have all of our variables that we need. We have name, ID, food type, latitude, and longitude. Seems like there should be one more. Yep, forgetting average cost. So double average cost is equal to food truck dot get double. This one is a double, and that is average cost, all lowercase. Yeah, we should have 6 parameters to pass into our constructor. And what is going on here? Doubles. Oh, I put get string. It should be get double. Get double and get double. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we can go ahead and initialize a new food truck variable from our food truck model. I'm going to say food truck. I'm going to call this new food truck is equal to new food truck. And then you can see here the parameters that we need to pass in: ID, name, food type, average cost, latitude, and longitude. So go on ID, and what was next? Name, food type, average cost, latitude, and longitude. Then once we have created, initialized that new food truck, all we're going to do is take it and add it to our food truck list we have right here. So then we're going to say food truck list dot add, and we're going to add the new food truck list, or new food truck to that list. And there we go. Perfect. And then that should work. So just to test it out, let's go ahead and say sout, and let's say food truck list dot get index, and we'll just grab the first food truck out of our food truck list, and to test it out, we'll say get name, and then right here I'm going to say this is the food truck name, and if everything goes according to plan, we should see. Oops, I need a plus here. We should see this print out with what is our first list? We have Taco Nirvana. So if everything goes according to plan, we should get a printout that says this is the food truck name, Taco Nirvana. All right, so let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so we have run it, and here is our printout. This is the food truck name, Taco Nirvana. So that is awesome. Let's go ahead and just run it real quick. We're gonna get the second one, and make sure we're working. And second name, Joe's Barbecue. So we have now an array list of our food trucks. And next up is to create our recycler views that will display those food trucks. And so we're making good progress here. And so in the next video, that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on our recycler view, adapter, the view holders, and the card views, etc. So it's going to be cool. And look forward to working on it with you in the next one. See you then.